The Earth is warming up as a result of human activity. Today, the average surface temperature is estimated to be 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and that number will continue to increase at an alarming rate if we do not drastically act against it. We are getting dangerously close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit and are clearly not meeting the expectations set by the Paris Agreement. Global warming is causing more frequent and more severe natural disasters, endangering millions of people across the world. In order to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, we face a Herculean task to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050.
Humanitarian organizations are on the front line of the climate crisis. Every day, they witness and react to disasters resulting from or exacerbated by global warming. Their primary objective is to save lives and alleviate suffering. In line with the do no harm principle, they must do so without causing any adverse effects to the communities which they support. This implies that humanitarian organizations have an inherent responsibility to minimize the carbon footprint of aid operations as well as any other environmental side effects. The fact that the communities receiving humanitarian help are often the most vulnerable to climate change further accentuates this responsibility.
More than 300 humanitarian organizations have by now signed the Climate and Environment Charter for Humanitarian Organizations, and by doing so have committed to reduce their carbon footprints. Visibility of where greenhouse gas emissions really occur is key. To significantly reduce their carbon footprints, humanitarian organizations must measure the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from their activities. This process is called carbon accounting. Most organizations do so by applying the GHG protocol. The GHG protocol is a set of rules that define how to measure and report greenhouse gas emissions. It distinguishes three categories of emissions. Scope 1 emissions are those directly emitted by the reporting organization. For example, emissions resulting from the use of diesel generators or vehicles owned by the organization. Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions are indirectly emitted by the reporting organization. Emissions resulting from the electricity purchased and consumed by the organization are classified as Scope 2. All other indirect emissions are classified as Scope 3. Scope 3 emissions can, for example, include emissions resulting from the manufacturing of purchased items, or those resulting from the last-mile transportation of these items by local carriers. Most emissions resulting from humanitarian aid are Scope 3 emissions. The reporting organization needs two types of data to calculate emissions. First, it needs activity data. Activity data reflect the activities of the organization which directly or indirectly result in emissions. Activities can be expressed in energy consumed, mass or value, and for transportation specifically, it can also be a combination of mass and distance. Emissions factors represent the second type of required data. These are factors which convert activity data into emissions volumes. The accuracy level of an emission factor varies based on its source and the level at which it's defined. Carbon accounting thus creates visibility on volumes and sources of greenhouse gas emissions and supports the organization in defining, developing, and monitoring carbon reduction plans.
If humanitarian organizations decide to publicly publish their carbon reports, some already do so yearly, then this would facilitate benchmarking exercises, accelerate knowledge sharing, and change. The challenge ahead is huge and will require the sector to collaborate. Donors may play a role by setting expectations and steering the sector towards a greener future. So, have you already started your carbon accounting journey?